Oh, there it is.
There we go. I love that it asks for my permission. I love that you have to get my consent now. It makes me happy.
It makes sense. Why would you not do that in the first place? If somebody doesn't know that they're being recorded, they might do or say something differently,
That's
it's
true. Yeah,
weird.
it's true. The
It's just like on
true.
the phone, like you should I know in most states it's a legal requirement that you let the like both parties have to agree to be recorded. Um
You just get to see the true person when they don't know that they're being recorded, you know?
I know, and nobody wants to see that. Nobody
No.
wants anybody to see the
We're all
true
giant pieces of
version.
garbage. It's not, you don't want to
We
see
don't
who
want
your heroes really are.
a glimpse into the raw humanity that is corrupt souls.
It's true. Actually, that stole the whole thing right out of my mouth. Incredible.
I tried to. I was looking at your mouth and I was like, how do I steal
He
all
looks
this
like
stuff
he's
out
gonna
of it?
form a specific sentence, and I'm gonna say it before he does.
He's got so many sentences.
Specifics.
Specific sentences.
I think that muscle relaxer is really working. Your mouth is just agape.
I just took a muscle relaxer like 2 seconds ago for my. I had some gnarly back and leg pain. Like,
Oh damn! Did you
I
finally go
think
see a
it's
doctor, and that's why they gave you muscle relaxers?
yeah,
Or
yeah. I did actually. I couldn't work. I tried to go to work the other day, and about 10 minutes in, I had so much like inflamed nerve and muscle issues in my right hip area
mm-hmm.
that I was like I couldn't stand up, I couldn't sit, I couldn't walk. I'm
Yeah, that
walking was
sounds
horrible.
awful.
Yeah,
Damn.
I think it's my sciatic nerve because one of the symptoms is that it kind of starts to run down your leg. You get pain in your lower back on
Mm-hmm.
one side, and then it runs down your leg, and it can go all the way to your foot. And
Hopefully, it doesn't spread into your scrotum.
no, the scrot's good. Scrot's good.
That's
Scrot's
good.
good, dog. Scrot's good, dog.
I was worried.
No,
You don't want to
let
deal with
me
that scrotum
double
pain.
check. Nope, seems fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks for caring
Mm-hmm.
about the real things that matter. So I went to the doctor. Like I called the doctor from work and I was like, "Can I get in there today?" And they were like, "Well, we can have you talk to a second, another doctor that's in our practice here, not my normal doctor." And so I got an appointment a couple hours later, and then I went in and they prescribed me with just ibuprofen, like take more ibuprofen than you've been taking
Mm-hmm.
for to anti-inflame it. And then they gave me a muscle relaxer, and it's pretty powerful. It feels good as far as like it doesn't make you like high or anything,
Mm-hmm.
or it's not like an opiate or something, but it's just chills out your all those nerves and muscles and all that and makes it bearable. And it's getting better, but I can still feel it today. I mean, I went for a walk and it you know, started to get inflamed again. I don't really know what the solution is, so I'm
Yeah, sometimes I don't know
I'm
if they really
concerned.
have much. Like, there's a lot of people that in the the doctor's office I used to work in that had like sciatic
Yeah,
nerve stuff, and it seems kind of almost like a chronic condition that you just sort of like ebbs and flows. Like you just have these
yeah. Have
flare-ups,
good
and you just
days,
have to
bad
deal with
days.
it, and then
Yeah.
it kind of goes away. It's like hemorrhoids. You just get these
Always got to come back to
flare-ups.
the fucking hemorrhoids.
You just get those flare-ups, and you just gotta
Yeah,
grind it out, with
yeah.
some
Or
special wipes for a bit, and then
like
eventually it goes away.
if you have herpes, like that never goes away.
It
It
doesn't, but
just
it
flares
does.
up.
It sort of flares up and then hides
Hmm.
to surprise sexual partners that didn't
Mm.
protect themselves later.
Surprise,
Yeah.
herpes.
Hey, I could have told you, but I'm a piece of shit. What can
That's
I
why
say?
you keep the lights off.
That feels weird. It feels a little bumpier. Yeah,
It's
it's ribs for
zits.
your pleasure,
I
babe.
got zits on my
It's
dick.
on my dick.
Zits on my dicks. That's
Not a
the name of
pleasant place to get a zit, I imagine.
my new album. It's called Zits on My Dicks.
Yeah, you just stand over the toilet just trying to pop that
Oh,
thing.
gross. I just thought of what it would actually be like to have zits on your dick. Oh,
I'm sure
that would
somebody's
be
gotten a
fun.
zit on their dick before. It's just skin, so I could see the
It's not
oil
just
buildup or
skin.
whatever.
It's not just skin. It's
On the out,
important.
well, there's
It's
more.
important
There's we're
skin.
more than skin, but
I need more than skin.
I'm sure there's little pores on there that can get clogged up, and then you just got a
Pores,
situation sometimes.
pores for whores.
You use those Bior nose strips, you just wrap it around your
Yeah.
cock and then just tear it off to get all the blackheads
Yeah.
off your penis.
They should do, that meme that's been going out where it's like this black goo that they put on somebody's face and then they
Oh yeah,
peel it
yeah.
off and then they have no blackheads. They just should do that for somebody's dick.
That shit looks so fake. It's just like I feel like you just pulled that off and then applied a bunch of makeup to their face because it seems like they
They
just
just
don't even have skin anymore
photoshopped it.
right
Yeah.
there. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
weird.
It's weird how all the detail went away there real quick.
It's the smoothest surface I've
Yeah.
ever seen.
Hmm.
It's
Weird.
impossible. But
Welcome
whatever, it
to
works.
the Fleeting Thoughts podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Channing. And we've
Thanks for
already
joining
started
us.
fleeting.
We've
We've
fleeted and we
covered
thought
muscle
it.
relaxers,
Well,
hemorrhoids.
I took like 2 days off, like 2.5 days off of work. It was some of the worst pain I've ever had. It was super
That
bad.
sounds
It made
bad.
me cry because I'm a big puss. And
Well, back pain in general is just like the
it
most
was,
uncomfortable pain because
yeah, there was nothing to
there's
do.
no position usually. Because I've had that,
Mhm.
where like if I sit in chairs for too long, like at work and stuff. Luckily, I have a standing desk now, so I can kind of get up and down throughout the day, so I'm not just sitting. But there were some days where like my lower back would start fucking hurting, mostly just from sitting. And I have slouching
Yeah.
problems, which I try actively to not
Yeah.
do. But
I've got a lot of good stretches that I've been doing, which seem to help, but I think because it's not a muscle issue, the stretching only does so much. It's
mhm.
a nerve issue and it could be a slip disc or something. I could have done more than just some minor damage. I don't know, but I don't really want to do a MRI or anything yet until I have to. But I have a physical therapy consultation coming up, so I'm hoping that they can give me an idea of like exercises and stretches that I can do and things to stay away from and
Mhm.
see if that helps. But I also have some other news that I can actually report on now. But
Ooh, let's hear it.
it might affect
Wow.
my medical situation because I'll have to get new insurance because I just put in my notice at my work and got another job. So
I'm so happy that they finally made prostitution legal in Portland
I
and that
know
you're getting the
I
opportunity
put
to
it.
just be the
Can you imagine
first.
the notice letter that says like, "Well, I'm going to work on the corner. They're offering me medical and dental,
My
401k
pimp is a
match."
very nice lady.
Mhm. That'd be awesome if the lady pimps. Would they be a
Pimplet?
pimpstress?
I don't know.
Pimplet?
Pimplet?
No, pimplet is like the pimple on your dick. That's what you call a pimple on your dick is a pimplet. But
Pimplet.
it'd be a pimpstress, right? Like a
Pimpstress.
mistress or a
Do
dominatrix.
they have their own? You know how
Dominatrix.
like there's prostitutes and then the male prostitutes are usually gigolos. So I
Hmm.
wonder if female pimps have their own like slang term.
I don't know.
But if
Savvy
not, we'll
business
just roll
ladies.
with pimptress since
Pimpstress.
you shot down pimplet so quickly. So
Pimplet? What? Nobody would think. Nobody would think pimp. You'd think something else, like pipette or
it
something.
does sound small. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're not small. They're
Um,
always big.
so is
Pimp.
this the job that you were talking about in the last couple of weeks that you had interviewed? I'm sure you probably don't want to say specifically
I
for the
don't
sake
want to
of
say at
privacy,
all
but
because I yeah.
you don't want to run the risk of somebody listening to you say something on here and then they try to cancel your ass on Twitter
I don't want
by
to be
letting
canceled
know
and I don't want to get
your
fired. And
whatever
I don't want to
company.
represent this company that I don't even work for yet, but
Hmm.
I'm going to start here pretty soon. So I'm pretty excited. I'm going to, it's a pay increase and it's still in retail, but it's exciting to have, to change, companies and to try something new and see how it goes.
Well, it's a pretty big promotion too from what you're doing, isn't it? It's like still
Um,
management, but it's like much higher management.
it's not much higher, but it's higher. It's a assistant manager type position, and
Well, I'm sure
it's more
Arby's is
money.
proud to have you, so that's great.
Yeah. Hey, don't knock it. That's the one thing that I don't know how that would work. I don't have any restaurant experience that would be useful. So it'd be like if I was working at like I think that would suck. I think a management position at fast food probably sucks because you have so many people who just hate their job. Like there's
Yeah.
no redeeming value to those jobs that like you can't really point
Can't
to
even pay your
anything.
bills with what you make there most of the time. You're
You
just
wouldn't,
there
yeah.
to hate
Well, and
yourself.
it's going to always be young people who are just leaving and never show
Hmm.
up and they're terribly unreliable.
That was how it was when I managed a Spencer's Gifts like years
Yeah,
ago.
exactly.
And
But
that's all that applied were just like these 18-year-old kids that
yeah,
were fresh out of high school or just starting college. And I actually did have some like college graduates with like bachelor's degrees that would apply, and I'm just like, what are you doing? This is like a
Well,
8 hour a week job.
overeducated.
Yeah, like what can you do nothing with your fucking degree that you just spent like $40,000 to get?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it was there. They were just a bunch of immature kids that were super unreliable. A lot of them was like their
Yeah.
first job, so they didn't
That's
even
why you have
really
to
know what they
hire
were
so
doing.
many of them, because half the time you're just calling somebody to cover somebody else because
Hmm
they don't know how to show up to their work because they don't need
And,
to pay bills.
and that's why I did that job for about a year and a half, and it was the worst year and a half of my life. And I
Oh my
never.
gosh.
That's when I was well on my way to exiting retail. I was like, I don't. I've been a
Yeah.
store manager now. There's not really much beyond that I can do that
Yeah. There isn't.
won't make me hate myself.
Well, and what sucks, and what I found out through talking to more people is there are very big differences between companies when it comes to store manager positions and how much you get paid. A place like
hmm
Spencer's and
Oh,
GameStop,
Spencer's pays garbage. Yeah,
it's just
same with.
it's just not worth the stress. I mean, even if you get paid more than other people, but it's not that much. It's not compared to, like, I was talking to some people about like store manager positions like in Target and Walmart and stuff like that, and they're in the like upper echelons of
One
pay
of those
rate.
big box stores,
Yeah,
I did after I left
actually
Spencer's,
big.
I
Yeah,
went to Barnes and Noble, which was my last retail job, and I was a merchandise manager there. And yeah, the store manager made like almost 3 times what I made as a
yeah.
store manager at Spencer's. So
Yeah, it's just not the same.
mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, it's roughly the same job. You work with a team and you make schedules. That's like the big
Yeah, it's
thing the
more. I
store
think it's
manager
just
does.
yeah, it's more just volume. I think you're just
Yeah,
managing more people and you're responsible for more product because your
yeah.
store is bigger. But yeah,
Bigger
overall,
sales.
the day-to-day tasks are very similar.
Yeah, a person can
Scheduling,
only do so much
interviewing,
anyway. Yeah.
disciplinary action, sleeping with assistants so that they can bolster their careers. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, you're helping them. You're gotta,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're like, hey, how do I, help the lower class, and if, and get something out of it myself.
hmm
You got to use your power. What's the point if you can't use it for?
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
Yep,
That's
it
what
is
I've been
true.
told.
Yeah, that's everything. Every part of your body. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's why you don't need your appendix, because you don't use it, and eventually somebody will take it out.
Nice.
Hmm. Same with what, your gallbladder. I don't think you really use
Yeah, you
that.
don't need the
You don't
gallbladder.
need
No,
that. You'd only need one lung,
only one
one
kidney,
kidney.
one
You
testicle.
don't really
Really,
need
no
two
testicles
eyes.
actually.
You don't need testicles. Uh,
If I didn't have my testicles, I would get no
uh-huh.
messaging done at all.
No, that's the new app. That's the new it's dick pic related app,
hmm
and it's called Texticles.
Dude, you better get on that. Somebody's listening to this right now,
Sons
and
of
they're like,
bitches.
"Holy
Sons of
shit!"
bitches. Don't steal it. It's trademarked
Yeah,
already. I already trademarked
yeah.
it. Don't worry. Don't
TM
even look it up.
testicles. Yeah.
TM. Yep. It was,
Copyright by Joe Gray in
heard it here first.
2021.
Mm-hmm. Texticles.
Anything else happened this last week aside from getting a new job, quitting
I
another
don't know.
job, being in agony, and then
Oh
now
yeah,
not
here.
being in less agony?
I'll show you the thing I did just right before this. I'm gonna screen share if I can ever figure out how to do it.
Believe in yourself.
I don't.
There we go. See, look at that. I said believe in yourself, and you did
I
immediately.
took some photos
Whoa,
today.
are those what the fuck
They
are
are
those?
aphids, I think. They are probably
I like
no
their
more
butt
than like,
prongs.
huh?
I like their
Oh,
butt
these little
prongs. So
butt
like that one in the
prongs?
middle has got little two
Yeah.
prongs coming off his
Yeah,
anus.
they do have little butt prongs. I didn't notice that. And they got like little, look at that prong coming out just like,
I know.
if you're just listening to this, go to joesnosblog.com, blah, 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 blah. There's photos there.
Joseph's blog.
But anyway,
You
I just took a walk and then ended up getting some pretty cool photos. Um, I feel like I might be the only person who's like does like just walks around their yard and like, anyway.
It's
So
pretty
this is
impressive
pretty
the
cool.
things you can find, like that bumblebee
Yeah, like
picture is
just little
fucking
things.
sweet, dude. It's just in
And
there doing its
this little
business.
guy, little fly, little hornet looking fly, just flower. And then I took this is, I'll show you soon. This is probably one of the best pictures I've ever taken in my life.
I like how
Look
just
at that.
clear that is. You have a nice camera because that
Yeah,
is
it
like a
does a good job.
sharp shot.
The
Because I imagine
lens
that
is
looks like it's in
half of
mid-flight.
it.
So
It is. It's crazy. I just
yeah.
saw these bees just buzzing around this flower, and uh, they were hovering enough time that I could try to take a shot. So I took
hmm
like 150 shots of bees flying around and got that one out of it.
Do you know if there's like anywhere you can submit these, like magazines or anything? Like
Yeah,
I don't like
there
so
are.
some of these shots, it's like they're really cool. Like they're probably worth submitting, and they might look at it and be like, "Oh, we could use this for something."
There are
Um,
competitions and there are
mhm,
websites, and then you can do stock photos and stuff. I'm thinking about doing like a photo book, like my
mhm,
favorite flowers, my favorite. And at this point, I have hundreds and hundreds of like pretty decent photos.
mhm.
I have thousands of photos, but I'd say, 20 of them are like pretty amazing shots. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I don't really know. I haven't really looked into how to do more with the kind of nature photography that I do, but I just enjoy doing it, so I just keep doing it and
Yeah,
kind of
well, neat
amassing a
hobbies.
collection.
Well, another plug for your blog is you wrote a really good review for
Oh, did you read that?
News of the World. Yeah, I read it. It was
Oh,
a
that's
really well
exciting.
written review. I like
Thank you.
reading your reviews because I feel like you actually put thought into them. There's a lot of reviews out there where it's like they wrote 2 paragraphs and you're like, I don't feel like I
Yeah, they
learned
just tell you
anything about
what's
that story. Yeah,
on the
they
inside
just kind
page.
of
Yeah.
regurgitate what's on the back flap and then say
Yeah.
it was good or ooh, it was kind of dragging in the middle, but in the end it was pretty. But yours are
Yeah.
like very
I
thoughtful and
I try to put like my actual feelings toward
mhm.
it, like what it was like to read it, if I found something interesting, and then a little bit of the plot, but I don't always go over the plot very much.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not. I mean, you only need to tell the person enough plot to
yeah.
give them an idea
'Cause-
and get them interested. I'm just glad that you like the book so much because I love that story. Like, it's such a heartwarming. Like, it's one of the few stories that I've read, and at the end of it, I like felt good.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
it's one
yeah.
of those stories I kind of kept waiting for some horrible thing to happen.
I know.
Like
Well, and it's
you're just
very
like, this is
tense the
such
whole
a
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so
yeah.
I just the whole time, and so it, not to spoil too much, but it just has like a real warmth to it, and it ends on like a very upbeat note, which is just kind of nice, especially with all the pandemic and just horrible shit that
Yeah.
happens, in the world day to day. It's nice to read just like a heartfelt story about a burgeoning relationship between two outsiders, basically, and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
them filling in these roles in each other's lives that they didn't know they were missing, kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
very really well written.
Thank you.
um
I'm glad you checked it out.
yeah.
I it was such I it might be the best book I've ever read as far as like a tight,
Hmm.
well sculpted piece. Like just everything just flowed really well and made a ton of sense, and it was very poetic, but it wasn't like uh un
Cumbersome, like
yeah,
it's
it wasn't
not, yeah,
cumbersome
it's
at
just
all. It was
mhm.
just, and then the metaphor, the whole thing is just this big, says so much about humanity and people and all this stuff. I it's Yeah, I'm gonna, you know, give it to my brother because we share books back
Mhm.
and forth and stuff. And
Yeah, I just bought a
yeah,
hardcover copy of it, like a really
yeah,
nice hardback that because I was like, it's one of those books that's so good. I just like want it on my shelf in my collection because I'll definitely revisit it at some point. You should definitely check out the movie though.
yeah, I
The
gotta check it
movie's
out.
really good. It changes some things, but nothing like so detrimental that it like takes away from the story. They just change some things about like Captain Kidd's background and
Oh,
kind
really?
of like some of the things in the beginning. Yeah, so in the movie, he doesn't have any kids, and his wife
Oh,
passed away, and so it's like it's just a little like those relationships are kind of different than in the
yeah.
because in the book. Well, I think in the book his wife's passed away, but he has his two like daughters that he still visits and stuff. But yeah, in the movie they change like a few things like that around a little bit, but ultimately the story is very similar. I also appreciate that the movie recreates that gunfight that he has when he just has the buck or the bird shot. Like
Hmm.
the movie recreates that scene exactly how it was in my head.
That's
Like it's
perfect. That's like
perfect.
one of the biggest events in
Yeah.
the whole thing. It
It's kind of
really,
one of the only like action set pieces really in the
yeah.
book is like that altercation. And I love just kind of how inventive it is. Instead
Um,
of being kind of a standard shootout, they have to be a little
yeah,
more
I liked
creative.
that they had that, and then there's all these like the whole thing is super tense and forward momentum, and you never know what's going to happen. It all kind of makes sense, and you're never disappointed, but there isn't a ton of action in it, but it still feels action oriented. It
Mhm.
still feels like there's always movement, there's always something going on. And so
Well, and the story does a good job of just making you care about those two
yeah,
main
such a
characters.
good
Like if you
job.
care about the characters,
Yeah.
the rest of the story is almost a cakewalk. Like the hardest
Yeah.
part as a writer is creating characters for people to actually care about,
Yep.
because if they care, then they care what's going to happen to them, no matter how mundane or exciting that is.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the key. If it's characters that you don't give a shit about, then you're almost like, oh, I hope they just fucking die already. Like, let's move on.
I
Um,
that happens all the time where you
yeah.
just have there's nothing that connects you to the characters, and it just doesn't matter. Like you're like, I don't care if they all die or they all live or everybody fucks each other. It doesn't
Mhm.
seem to it doesn't matter if they do any of that stuff. But yeah, read my review. Half the time I'm like, just go buy the book. Like you don't got to
Yeah.
read shit. But the reviews are a lot of people like to read the reviews. I always put one. I copy pasted onto the Amazon
Mhm.
reviews setup. So,
Yeah, that's good.
and I found out they don't let you put links to your website. So it's literally just my review that ends up on there.
That's still helpful though for
Yeah,
people.
I
Yeah,
like
but
it.
everybody looks over Amazon reviews when they're
Yeah.
looking to buy something. So that's like the bread and butter for any, especially like the indie authors. It's almost more
Yeah, they
important to
need
get a
those. They
review
need
than it
those
is
for
anything
sure.
else, because they need people to know that it's worth their time.
Yeah, there's a what is it called? Billy Todd. I forget. I think it's just called Billy Todd or something like that. Odd Billy Todd, I think is the name of the book, and it's an
Hmm.
independent series or an independent book that the guy's written like 10 books, very
Hmm.
similar to like how you're doing it, where it's all independently published and print on demand stuff, and and it was I put the review out for that, so um I think people should find weird books and interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's
I
hard
mean,
to
there's a
find.
lot of it out there. There's millions of people writing books every year. There's like literally
Yeah.
millions of books that come out. Like I was reading this interview that they did with, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name. She's a romance author, and she's been in the business for like 30, 40 years, writing these romance novels. And she was just talking about how back in her day when she was starting out, there wasn't that many people trying to get things published, like nowhere near what there is today. So she was like, if you had like a decent typewriter and could write a coherent romance story, you pretty much had it in the bag. Like you could just
Yeah.
approach a specific publisher, and as long as it was pretty solid, they would pretty much publish it for you, because there wasn't this huge volume of those things coming in like there is now. And so she's just like, I can't even give advice to burgeoning authors these days, because it's such a
Yeah. What do you
different
do?
climate than it used to be, because there's just so many people trying to do it now, and there's just all these manuscripts being submitted all over the place all the time, and everybody's independently publishing because you can't find any success elsewhere, and you got to find an agent if you want to get a publishing deal that's worth
Yeah.
anything. And so it's just fascinating how much like the landscape has changed over the last couple
Yeah. Well,
decades.
it's the same with music. It's the same with
Mm-hmm.
online entertainment. Like YouTube is like anybody can do it. So
Yep.
the quantity has gone through the roof and the quality is there. It's just
Harder to find.
hide it. It's
Yeah,
hiding. It's a high. It's done hiding.
I think that muscle relaxing your brain
We should
a
do
little
more
bit there.
podcasts like late at night when we're tired. Less filters, less serious, more weird thoughts happening.
Well, I mean, some of the
I
old
mean, I'm
episodes
not
we
that
did
tired.
was us sitting on your couch at like fucking midnight, and yeah, that shit would get weird sometimes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I like that's one of the fun things of like staying over at somebody's house like for a when you're younger, but I mean you still do it sometimes, but
Adult
yeah,
sleepover.
yeah, like in a
Yeah.
like you have friends over late for a party or something, and you're still pretty sober, but you're like super tired and just gets super funny. Everything is
Mm-hmm.
super fun and interesting, and you can't remember anything that you're doing. It's fun. Anyway,
Anyway.
anyway. So you want to get into a topic?
Oh yeah, I
You
guess
want to get
it's just that time,
serious?
huh?
I don't
Let's
know.
get
We could.
serious.
You don't have
So
to.
I
You
thought an
don't
interesting
have to do
topic, which we
shit.
were gonna do last week, and then we got so wrapped up in
I don't
fucking
remember.
random others. Yeah, that was like that episode was interesting. That was just an organic conversation for an hour and a half, basically. Last
Yeah.
last week, it just never stopped. Um, but I
Don't
thought it'd be
stop.
interesting to talk about spirituality.
Spirituality.
Yeah, a very
What's the
simple topic that's
spirituality?
not a lot of depth at all, right?
No, nobody's ever talked about it before, so it's really good
Yeah, it's a very
that
unique
we need
topic.
to really
Tackle
dive
this.
in and
It's
dig in.
two learned men.
Yes, I've been studying spirituality for 72 years. I have a doctorate in both spirituality and religious studies, and I will be. Now I'm somewhat German, so this is nice. Yes, I've
It just
turned
started
from
slipping.
British to Germany's, and I
You've
am
just studied
a
all over.
scholar.
You've acquired
I've
some
been
accents along the way.
I've been to all of the countries, and I've learned about spirits and
That there is only
ghosts.
one
So
God,
yeah, and his name is Jehovah.
and I am
And
his
that is
witness.
Jay-Z, actually. Go and brush your shoulders off. So I'm curious what it would be your definition of spirituality, because it's a very vague term.
For me, I think it's like an exploration of like facets of life that we don't quite understand. So almost like through a not maybe not quite supernatural, but I guess it has elements of supernatural. But I feel like there's just so much about people in the world that science has just not been able to explain yet, and so we turn to more spiritual things to try to explain them. Um, like for me, like the whole basis for like spirituality for me in terms of my own beliefs is not founded in religion really at all, because I don't believe in God or any deities of any kind. But with spirituality, for me, it's like this concept that we are all technically beings of energy with fucking neurons and synapses firing and shit all the time. And we are literally like composed of energy. And then there's that law that's like, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So it's like, what happens to the energy once you're gone?
Mm,
And so,
okay.
I think, and so it's like that almost, I guess, starts to go into this idea for me of like, we're beings of energy. We're surrounded by a world and an ecosystem of creatures and animals and plant life and everything that a lot of it is made up of energy as well. And so it's like, what does that mean? Like how I feel like there's a way for us to communicate with the world outside of just like thinking and knowledge, but through like feeling and like the aura and the
Okay.
vibes that you kind of give off. Because I feel like your energy can probably be positive or negative and affected by emotions and hormones and other things. It's almost like this thing that kind of lives in tandem with everything else. It's just sort of like, I guess, like if you really wanted to boil it down, it would be like my definition of what like the soul would be in quotes,
Hmm.
would be like the energy that you're comprised of. um and that's also part of the reason why, like, when people talk about ghosts, I'm like, I would be more inclined to believe in a ghost than most other supernatural phenomena, only in that I could see like your energy leaving like a signature behind somewhere. And like that's kind of what people see, because the idea with ghosts is it's usually a ghost repeating a certain thing over and over and over again, whether it's like
Hmm.
some traumatic thing that happened to it or something like that. So it's like I could see like your energy almost leaving something behind that sort of is in this like loop, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's just what I was thinking about it the other day when I was out walking on a break. It was like trying to understand like how our energy interacts with the other energy. And I'm like, I feel like that would be my definition of spirituality, is just the way that the energy that we're comprised of operates within the world itself and all the other
So is
energy
it
that
is
exists.
it is it like, I'm trying to mix it up with the word consciousness or the self.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the energy that is used in your cells and in your muscles and in your actions, because you use energy when you do any type of work,
Mm-hmm.
like lifting or moving, or even just your heart beating requires a certain amount of energy, and you need food and things to kind of sustain that. Um, do you think that, like, is that what you're talking about as far as like your spirit, like you chanting, you have a kind of discrete um version of energy that is one thing that is like you, and that's what would be interacting with other things but also would stay around as a ghost?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel
So,
like you could use the energy of other things to like supplement yourself, like food,
well, you
for
do. That's
example. Right.
exactly
Exactly.
how,
Exactly.
I
So
mean,
it's
energy
like,
transfers and
yeah.
is
But I feel like there's like a
reconstituted and
core
things.
like energy that your body specifically is kind of using or comprised of, and then you're passing that energy off onto other things through your actions.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, it's all being transferred. Like I said, the central idea behind like this thought for me was the fact that it can't be created nor destroyed. And so then I'm just like, what does that mean then, like when you're gone before you're
Isn't
here,
that, I
like,
think
you
it's
know what
a
I mean?
second law of thermodynamics or whatever, is energy is kind of stuck in a
Hmm.
particular state, as far as how much there is in the known system.
Hmm.
Like, we don't know if energy gets lost out at the edges of what we know, but for the most part, we know that energy is conserved. Um,
Yeah, and
I
so
don't.
and
Yeah,
like and
interesting.
that's kind of where like the like I said, like science sort of can't explain a lot of the stuff. And so it's an interesting way to think about just our interactions with the world. Like people always talk about trying to be Zen, or how like when you go for a walk out in nature, you feel better. It's like
Hmm.
just things like that, like that. You're interacting with all this other stuff around you, and so I feel
Yeah.
like you're transferring and dispersing and going back and forth, and um I feel like it's just like a connection that we all
So,
share.
do you think we should use the word spirituality as opposed to just emotions or consciousness or energy?
I feel
Like,
like you
why even
could, because
use
I
the
feel
word?
like I just, it's usually when people are like, oh, are you spiritual? I'm always like, well, I'm spiritual
Well,
in that the sense that I believe we're beings of energy. And so
yeah,
there is that.
it's usually actually more related to religion, in that what they'll
Hmm.
usually say is, "Are you religious?" And they'll say, "No, I'm spiritual," which is like accepting a certain um like supernatural ignorance or something like that.
Well, and and that's why I think what I mean by that is that I accept that there are things that we don't understand that science hasn't been able to prove. And so it's like spirituality for me is almost like this is just me saying I'm spiritual so far in that I know that there are things happening that we don't understand. And so until I guess we can define that concretely, like exactly what's going on,
Yeah.
which I don't know if
So,
we ever would. But I mean,
yeah.
there was an article I just saw, it was a couple weeks ago, but they were talking about how they just discovered like some new microscopic like organism or something that interacts with all kinds of different life, like even us, that they had never seen before. And so it's
Hmm.
just that kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
as our technology continues to advance and we're learning more and more.
So, do
um
you think that with science, the term spirituality kind of becomes eh,
I think it will be
more
become
vague and
lessened.
more,
Yeah.
yeah, like it actually describes less things and becomes more vague because it
Hmm.
has to describe all those little things that we don't understand, because we learn so much more. Like 100
Yeah.
years ago, if you were like, most people would be religious, not just
Hmm.
spiritual, but they would believe in supernatural spirituality, and they would use that as the explanation for a ton of things, like even enough that there's different words for different supernatural things, like God and ghosts and demons and angels and all these things that represent our ignorance. Because that's what I think when we use the term spirit, ghost, God, um any of those like words for something happened and I don't know what it was, and I assume that there's some type of agency involved. Like it feels like things don't just happen, like they have to be somewhat related to somebody wanting it to happen, or like, agency in
Hmm.
general. Like, we tend to give everything agency. Like the second, like your lamp gets knocked over, with when you didn't do it, you don't immediately go wind or earthquake. You think spirit. You think some human
There's a
may have
fucking
knocked it
ghost up in
over,
here,
right?
knock that
That's
shit
what I would,
over.
I think that's what we
Hmm.
use those terms for, is usually just as little placeholders. And I think some people would say they're not, that the term spirit or ghost or whatever, or human spirit, um, is in and of itself a thing, like it's describing something. And I think it's more just the fact that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know exactly what happened. Um, you're trying to explain something that you can't explain.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I think it has to do with emotions as well. I think emotions and our ability to create patterns out of anything, and our need to understand stuff, kind of, we fill in gaps all the time. And so um, we'll see um, human faces in patterns, and so that can be a kind of spiritual experience. You see something, and then oh, my mom's been dead for 6 years, and then I saw this painting, and my mom was like right there. I saw this blotch on the wall.
Hmm.
But partly it's just like a bit of a trick or an illusion or some type of like your brain um not accepting confusion. Like it's actually confusing, but you have to fit it into a explainable box.
Yeah.
But I like the word human spirit. I'm
Hmm.
not a big fan of the term spirit in general, and I'm not a big fan of the term spirituality, um, because I stay pretty hard away from any religious and supernatural kind of beliefs, even when stuff gets weird and I become
Yeah.
pretty in awe of things, or um, you know, um, even um, when my back was hurting really, really bad, I
You start talking to God, didn't you?
I did a little bit, and
Release
it was
me.
really interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting because I hadn't done that in a while, but it was so
Yeah.
painful that I was like crying, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. And I was like, now I'm going to be a disabled person. And I can't work out. I can't walk. I can't do anything. I was being dramatic.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember just thinking in my head, I was talking to myself, but saying, like, just please help me, please. Like, it was a throwback to when I was a kid and believed in God. And um, I immediately knew what I was doing and knew that I was like reaching out for comfort. And I think
Hmm.
that's what a lot of people do. And I, I didn't, there wasn't anyone there. It was just me,
Yeah.
like I
Just you.
realized, because I genuinely don't believe in God, and I really don't like to entertain too many fantastical notions. And but I still found myself like wanting someone up above, somebody to help me, like a parent, or which is a general metaphor for God, or God
Hmm.
is a metaphor for that. Um but I think that's what people call spirituality. They call it that thing that you do when you're very vulnerable, and um you want there to be these agents in the world that make things make sense.
Hmm.
Like God, or I'm trying to mix it all up, but it's like God and ghosts and spirits, and
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Is it?
it all
It's
kind
almost
of
like a way
matches the
to
same thing.
sort of categorize something that you couldn't explain with science. But it's like when you like walk
Yeah.
into a room, maybe it's like at a funeral or something. It's like you can immediately like feel a different sort of energy like in the room because everybody's giving off these like very negative or
Yeah, there's a lot of
like sad
subtext.
emotion. And like that's the kind of thing where it's like I'm like, well, obviously there's like something here that's putting that feeling in the air that we can kind of all pick up on and feel outside of just seeing people crying in a room and like having the visual cue that, oh, these people are sad. Like I feel like you can actually feel a difference when you walk into a
Yeah,
room.
well, you
And
can.
so it's
I think that what you're describing is just the kind of odd thing that happens when you watch yourself have subconscious instinctual reactions,
mhm.
and you don't know what they are. Like you can tell that something is changed, and it's because subconsciously your the cues in the room of the people, and maybe even the smells, because I think um a lot of things happen through smell and through subtle eye contact and things like that.
Mhm.
And most of it, I think, most of it's subconscious. And I think that you every once in a while you get a glimpse into the workings of your subconscious through, like like you get nervous, or you get excited, and you notice that, but you don't know why. And because your body is so attuned to the environment that it's it's been doing that longer than the part of your brain that can do consciousness
Mhm.
and to create a stream of thought that makes sense. And so there's so much more of that. It's like uh iceberg. um like an iceberg is just a little bit of tip and
Mhm.
then a lot of
Most
balls.
of it's under most of it's under the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the tipping balls.
Have you heard of these
These
iceberg
icicles.
icicles, iceberg reviews? They're like analyses on YouTube and such, and they just like they talk about how we kind of know this much, but then they go over like the
Mhm.
deeper story. Anyway, it's a trend. um so I think that our consciousness is an iceberg, and essentially the very, very tip of it is our actual like conscious self, and then the rest of it's subconscious. It's a
Mhm.
pretty easy metaphor to make. um and I think there's just so much going on there that we don't have explanations for. That you know that's why you see something and it becomes something that's significant. That's why you have all these emotions that are confusing. And so I think that that holistic thought, the thought of all of it, is kind of your spirit. Like
Mhm.
your spirit is kind of um the intangible version of yourself that you know exists but doesn't exist within any single piece of you. It doesn't
Yeah.
exist inside of an arm, it doesn't exist inside of a cell, it's not inside your brain. A lot of people think that's where a lot of you is, but I think it's your whole self, all of it, plus your whole nervous system, muscles, hormones, all of that stuff.
And your
um,
energy, which is what I was
yeah.
saying earlier.
Well, and energy is an interesting one because it can be used in ways, the term can be used in ways that are
Mhm.
more vague than science uses that term.
Yeah.
Because I think we think of energy as kind of almost another word for motion, which kind of makes sense. But energy as a kind of um, singular force, I don't really understand that. I think energy, I think of it as a more technical term. I don't think of like my spiritual, um, like if I were to use the term spiritual
Mhm.
nature, like the kind of expression of the the I that I think I am. Um, I don't really think of that as energy. I think of energy as um, like when a neuron uh, fires, or when, like, that's kind of like what we're talking about, but also
Mhm.
energy like just to lift this, or energy from the sun which gets converted from plants. You know what I mean? I don't really think of like um energy in a way that is like like magical or Harry Potterish. Like
Mhm.
that's not,
The force. That's
yeah, the
really
force. Like energy to me is just another physical
Mhm.
force. It's like, I mean, it's not even as tangible as that. Like um it's mathematical to me. I don't really think of like
Yeah.
it, I don't like using the term in less technical terms, but
Well, I think, and that's what I like. Kind of what I meant was, I don't mean in like a sort of hocus pocus magical way. It's just like if somebody's like, "Oh, do you believe in ghosts?" I'd be like, "Well, I mean, we're beings of energy, and maybe when you die, some of that energy stays somewhere. So, I mean, I guess maybe there could be some possibility that a ghost could exist through like that line of thinking." But it's not
yeah.
really me being like, "Oh, when you die, magical, funsy, feely energies get dispersed out into the world, and then those intermingle with other things, and then it creates
Oh
this time
Jesus.
paradox where you know what I mean? Like,
Oh
I
geez,
don't get, I don't
that's a whole narrative there.
get.
I just think, like, to me energy is like singular,
Mhm.
and that was why I think, like it's minute. It's energy is like all sorts of different things, but I don't I don't feel like I don't feel like there's one energy bit that's me. I
Mhm.
think I'm just like tons of different energetic
Well, yeah, I could see it. Like,
materials
it's
moving,
like
and
your,
chemicals and chemical energy, potential
mhm.
energy.
Yeah.
um that's what I, so what I think, I would, the way I would talk about it instead of using that term, is I would just say consciousness, because that seems more like almost individual human. Like
Mhm.
we kind of think of ourselves as an independent, like an I, because we have this consciousness that sort of creates an individual stream that
Have you ever
that you talk to.
yeah, I was going to say, have you ever, so when you were earlier, when you were talking about how you were in a lot of pain recently and you were like sort of reaching out to like a godlike sort of, asking for help from an unknown
Yeah,
source, I guess.
comfort.
But it made me think. So when I was a kid, I didn't grow up in a religious house, and I'm not religious at all. But I remember having conversations, but it wasn't with like God. I remember always talking to myself. Like I always envisioned an alternate version of myself that existed invisibly alongside me. And it
Oh,
was sort of
wow.
like a
Isn't that
different
just
version.
a like an imaginary friend?
It's like an
But
imaginary friend,
you
but he
just
didn't
thought of
have
it
a
as
name. It
you.
was just me. It was
Yeah.
just like an
You
outside
were
version of
you're
me
probably
that
just
I would
smarter than other
converse with.
kids.
And so, but I remember that when I was a kid, like I would sometimes carry on like some
Yeah.
conversations, sometimes actually like verbally out loud or just in my head, I would be
Yeah.
talking, and like this other version of me that I envisioned would like help me figure problems out or just talk
Mm.
to me if I was trying to,
Yeah.
if I was lonely.
I don't think that
And
goes
so,
away. I think you just
yeah,
integrate that into yourself
but that's the
instead
only
of
time I've
externalizing it.
ever, and there's been times where like I'm in a lot of duress and I'm like asking for help, but
Yeah.
it's like that same thing where I'm envisioning this alternate version of myself that exists, and I'm like trying to ask
Mhm.
them to help me in some way because
Sure.
I don't feel like anything else can or whatever. And so it's always been like this alternate version of myself that's like
Sure.
along for the ride, that's always sort of just been like in the back seat just hanging out while I'm
Yeah.
driving, and
It's
sometimes
like
I
your
need its help.
conscience or
Yeah.
your alter egos. I think that is I think what people talk about when they
Yeah.
talk about your spirit or your consciousness or your who you are is or when they you know have multiple personality disorder or
Well,
whatever.
yeah. Yeah.
um
For the record, it's not on that level. I'm not like
no, of course not.
sitting here just being like, hey,
Well,
it's more like, it's
if
just
you
more
are,
like
you're
this.
doing a great job of hiding it.
Right. It's more almost contemplative, I think,
Of
when you're
course.
really trying
I think it's
to.
totally natural. I actually wrote a blog about how I think that essentially we're going we have two hemispheres to your brain,
Mhm.
and I think that they have two separate streams of consciousness that are continually running, and then the kind of one wins out over the other most of the time, and
Well, I
one
feel like, yeah,
has
especially depending on your situation, like when, like if I'm at work and I'm dealing with a very like high stress, high acuity client that's like emotionally like coming on really strong, I can almost feel like the emotional side of myself shutting down, and then just like all logic takes
yeah,
over because I'm like, what's the problem?
yeah.
What can I do to solve? You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like
Become
it's,
emotionless and
yeah.
rational. I just think that's my theory of consciousness is that um we have the two different hemispheres and there's a corpus callosum in between, and you have the side that's more rational and you have the side that's more creative, and you
Mhm.
have the side that's more acute, like when it focuses on things, and you have the other side which is more abstract. And I think that your brain is all of it's doing something, um not all of every cell, but like your both hemispheres are running at the same time.
Yeah.
There's things going on, there's activity in most of the parts of your brain, and then there's concentrated activity depending. But your like observant self sort of is tracking both, and it's trying to utilize both efficiently and to some success. And at certain points it's like just more rational, and sometimes it's more creative, and sometimes it's like I think sometimes you actually do both simultaneously really well, and
Mhm.
that's when you go in the zone, and you are both analyzing and being creative at the same time, and you really are using your consciousness efficiently. And like dreaming, there's a whole that matches well with that. But
Yeah.
that's why you can talk to yourself too. I think that also you have ways of uh, compartmentalizing pieces in your brain so that you can have a conversation with like your dad or your mom or your friend. You can imagine what they would say, and it's your version of them. And you also have a version of you inside of your head, and it thinks certain things and does certain things. And sometimes the version of you actually isn't you. Like sometimes you're hearing someone else's voice, like your dad or your mom, somebody who had a big impression on you early on and helped create your personality.
Mhm.
So that's why like a lot of times you have to kind of like listen to your inner consciousness and try to decipher whether it's helpful or not. You might have, things that are really negative, and that can come from um, negative versions of yourself,
Yeah.
and others that have been around you. That's why you can like do impressions of people really well, because you have versions of them inside your head. Anyway, that gets a little bit more into theories of consciousness than
Well, but it's
spirituality.
I think it's related, yeah. Like when I thought of the topic, it was more like what do you think when people ask, are you spiritual, or
And I just
and
don't
so
get that
like
question very
that's
often.
yeah.
But you're around Christian people more than I am, and I'm
Mhm.
around Christian people who don't who know who I am, and they're not going to bring it up.
And like I said, my answer is always like, well, we're beings of energy, so I'm sure that that has a plays a factor in multiple things. And every time I go into that, then they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
What
think it's
about God though? And I'm like, no,
yeah,
he's not up there.
yeah,
You're talking to yourself, basically, is what I'm getting at.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was a tool created by some very clever people to rule over you with lots of fear and control. Because if you don't do what they say you should do, according to the books written or the words written in their book, that's good, then you're going to burn in some imaginary place for all of
it's
eternity.
gonna
And
suck.
so, now you're going to obey
Yeah,
whatever they tell you is good because you don't want
yeah,
to go there for eternity. You want to go up to the pearly gates and fucking fuck virgins for all of eternity or whatever your version of heaven is. And what's funny is like how you were saying earlier how we think we have to whatever we can understand we have to put into a box, right? That of our own understanding. Like you have to try to justify and fit it into our understanding of how the world works, which is funny because you know how God is apparently supposed to be this like omnipresent, omnipotent being. It's like, how could you possibly understand anything about this being then? Because we are not that way. So you're now just going to start attributing human things to a deity to try to help understand what it is.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that's like
that's like
either
my
either God exists and he's indescribable.
mhm.
In that way, you can't do it, or God doesn't exist and we created um, an external agent that it just happens to be a person. It's
Mhm.
just a big, super powerful person. It's like the most power you can imagine, and that's just something like, what I mean. It's like either God really does exist, and they are so outside of any kind of realm of relatability that what words would you use to describe it? It wouldn't like if it talked to you at that point, it'd become more like you, and then its godness is diminished, right? Because you
Yeah.
understand its words. Like how does it have words when there are thousands of languages and dead languages and like oceans and fish, and why would it speak English to you?
Why does
That
it look like a white
seems
guy
odd.
with long hair and a big bushy white
See,
beard?
it's all just
Yeah.
yeah, it's either real or we just created it to personify thoughts and emotions and feelings and subconscious things and
And to
the
control
the
people.
universe. And then you just build that up over time and history, which is all about power and
Mhm.
control for humans. It's a tool that's evolved.
I
And
think
I don't
most
think no one
people,
person did it. It just evolved
yeah,
over time, and it's become very complex with the complexity of human civilization. And looking back on it with so much knowledge as modern humans, we can look at the Bible and be like, that's stupid. Like,
yeah.
but
Well, that's
if
the
you
other
were
thing
in the
too, is it was,
prehistory, it wouldn't look stupid. It would be this evolution and momentum of this tool that's helped people stay together and have kids and fight armies and all that stuff.
when I studied Greek mythology like in middle school, that was when I really like cemented my belief that there was no God because we're, reading about all these Greek gods, right? They have Greek gods for fucking everything, the ocean, the sky, whatever. And people were kind of, I remember classmates like sort of joking and making fun of that. And I was like, how is that any different than what we do? We just got lazy and rolled them all into one fucking
Yeah,
dude. Like
yeah,
instead of having to remember all these different names and their relationships to each other and who's the son of what god
yeah.
and who was Zeus cheating on to have this one, like we just rolled it all into one person. And so that was what I like really clicked for me. I was like, I feel like people in another 1,000 years are gonna look at our religion and be doing the same thing we're doing right now, which is just like laughing, like fucking
Yeah,
idiots
yeah,
believing that
probably.
some fucking omnipresent being was overseeing everything. Fucking tool
And who,
bags.
yeah, who did like, yeah, I think that's why I think the older pagan religions and like Greek religions and any religion that's not monotheistic
Mhm.
makes more sense, because as you're discovering the universe, you need to tell stories, and so that your kids and your family and everyone survives better. And that's the thing people do really well, is we communicate really well with each other and pass
Mhm.
on our knowledge. So having gods for everything just helps you tell a story. It helps you tell a story about the wind. It helps you tell a story about the sun. The sun is, really powerful. And so it becomes really powerful in your stories so that you can explain the world away. And as science increases, those stories are no longer needed. And so then at some point, there's like a tipping point where people are like, well, we know so much. We don't need gods for storms because we know what that is. Because I would assume that knowledge increases over time, and so they just create the monotheist, and then it just becomes about um, religion. It's not an explanatory tool for the universe anymore. It's a tool for politics. At a certain point, Indians are tribal people. Um, their gods were um, like useful for understanding the world. And the monotheistic God doesn't help with any of that.
Mhm.
It's not specific enough. It's just God's wrath whenever something bad happens, or it's the devil. Um, so it's interesting that monotheism, I don't know. Of course, it's gonna, ebb and flow, and people are gonna change. The unknown has to become different, and I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that um, like as people become more atheistic and scientifically based, our religions and our thoughts sort of change, and even long held monotheistic gods kind of go away a little bit. And so now we have like we're going to worship all sorts of weird shit. Like, can you imagine what religions will be in like 50 years when no one believes in Christianity? Like it's like a 3% of the population in
You know
America.
what it'll switch to is it'll probably, especially with the trend that we're on now, is it's less about like worshiping a supernatural deity. It'll be like worshiping companies,
Yeah,
right? Because like
it might
technology is
be
going to
because
keep
you need it
growing, and
so
it's like,
much.
you
Google
know,
could be the new god.
you
And
already kind of see that with like
but do people worship that kind? Like, do they really? You would need to consider it worship. Like they have to really like pray or something.
well,
Like
I
there
guess
has to be
maybe worship,
something to it.
maybe not worship is not the right word, but I
Yeah.
feel like our tribalism will alter to, you already see this like on Twitter, like in video games. You have your PlayStation people, you have your Xbox
Oh yeah,
people, and they
PC.
like fucking get at each other like
It's
their
crazy.
product is like the be all end all. And
Yeah.
so I can see that being the future, where like as religion continues to decline,
Yeah, the
but like
tribes
these big
change.
tech companies and like these other things, because we live in a capitalistic as fuck society, like we're all just buying shit all the time. And I can see, I feel like that's where the tribalism will kind of switch, is it'll be less more about religion and just more about like
I think you're
what
right.
fucking companies that you love
Yeah.
and put your money into.
Well,
And
it's like we need little things to bind us together for power, for like, because you're more
mhm,
powerful in a group. And so we created so many different ways of creating groups. And the religion was like the big one because it was about
mhm.
how to live. But now everybody's like, living is easy. I think there's a song about it. Summertime. Um, Sorry.
Thank you.
You know what I'm talking about?
It's
Did
not
I
ringing
mention
any
I'm on a
bells, but
muscle relaxer and I'm getting a little
I'm getting a
weird?
little loopy here.
Um, I forgot what I was talking about. I
Just
Living's
how
easy. Okay,
easy,
living's
living is
easy.
easy. Yes.
Um, and so you don't need the religion. You don't need the commandments. You get it. You know how to live in society in the modern world. It's not hard. Um, and so you create new groups. And so we have, all the sports, all the clubs, all the
Yeah.
Every,
Sports
I
are
mean, how many
bad
different
too.
groups are there
Jesus,
that we
man.
have?
Yeah.
Yeah, sports,
Football is
esports,
ridiculous.
football,
Like
of course, and they all, it's tribalism.
it's
But I think
oh
I
yeah.
think part of it is a game. I think part of it is that people know that they need that and it's fun, but there has to be some part of some of those people who know that it's just a fill in for connection. Like, you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't actually kill you over a football game.
Well,
They
I
wouldn't
think that's how
actually, I think some
people
people will
oh
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, people are dedicated as fuck and they're passionate, and people have had riots because of, football games and soccer games
But
and
I
shit.
think that's how people are with religion. I think that most people who claim to
It's very
be
similar.
some religious affiliate of some kind, like Christian or Catholic or whatever, I think most of them don't actually 100% believe, because you wouldn't have,
You can't.
all of these people. Because if
Maybe
you
it's
really
just
believed in
intelligence.
sin and all this stuff, it's like then you wouldn't have any fucking personal belongings. You wouldn't have wealth. You'd constantly be out
Yeah.
there trying to help all the poor and downtrodden, and nobody fucking does that
No.
aside from a select few people. And so
Mhm.
I like when people say that they're Christian or whatever, I'm like, how Christian are you really?
Yeah, like
Like, I
prove it.
mean, are
Just
you
because you
just a
say that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like you're just
interesting because,
affiliating to this group.
yeah, I
Is
think,
I know a lot of Christian people who are having sex out of wedlock, living with their partners when they're not married, having children, like all these things that are no-nos. And it's like, well, I mean, are you really a part of this group then? Because you're defying the doctrine of your
yeah,
fucking assigned group that you've given yourself. So
but they don't even,
the most of them don't even read the Bible anyway. I don't even think
Christians
they
are
fucking know.
there. Any Christian that I would like to associate with probably like isn't going to have a very strict definition of anything like that. It's
Right,
just not going to
most of them
work.
don't.
The
Yeah,
world is not like that anymore. You can't hate all the gay people. It doesn't work.
yeah.
It's you shouldn't, and there's no good reason for it. But
I mean, kudos to the
it's also
Amish. Those
like
guys are
just
dedicated, to
it's
their
just
shit.
yeah, it's just interesting. Yeah, I don't. They have a system and they've got to stick with it. And
Mhm.
the bigger, vaguer religions just evolve like anything else, any other thought, any other um, concept. The thing evolves and changes to match what the people want, and people want to live in a modern society with modern morality and modern ethical considerations.
They need
And
Parlor on their phone so they can talk to their other conservative friends about
yeah, they have the right.
whatever.
Freedom of speech. Yeah.
I think everybody's just trying to find their tribe. Everybody's just trying to find their groups that they can fit
You
into,
need
because we're
something.
we're fucking social creatures, whether we like it or not. And so you want to belong in some way
Yeah.
to
And then there are
something.
more and less outsiders, more or less
Hmm.
people who just have smaller groups. Because I mean, I don't know. I feel like if I had to pick a group, it would just be like 7 people,
Yeah, I'm the
you
same
know,
way. I don't, because the more people you
and
have in your life, it's just more drama. It's more hearing their fucking problems when you don't
I don't
really
know.
care that
Yeah.
much. And,
Ugh.
you know,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like
uh,
an effort thing or like I just have, because I didn't get those benefits out of other groups that I've been in. Like I was in baseball for, all through junior high and high school. And at a certain point, like I kind of just wasn't it. I wasn't really friends with anybody, and it was like it
mhm.
was a group that didn't help me. I was in, we went to church. That I had one good friend out of that whole group of people, and I didn't get almost. I mean, that was a great relationship. He's a great guy. But other than that, what did I get out of it? I didn't get anything out of the religion or the church. Um, I got a lot of confusion, like I got a
Mhm.
lot of like what I can't do or what's wrong to do. And a lot of it was about, sex and shame and how boys and girls shouldn't be in the same place and stuff. So all the churches I went to were pretty conservative and pretty,
Damn. Yeah, that
so
is
I didn't know about anything, I still don't know
really
that
explains a
much.
lot about you now.
It
Yeah.
should,
It's just,
of course.
mhm.
Well, and then, not to out anybody, but when I was 14, my brother got somebody pregnant. Um, and so right when I'm starting to date, it was a very, very stressful, emotional experience to watch the aftermath of, these very conservative people dealing with, premarital sex and he
You
was
can have
only
all the faith in the
16,
world,
like,
Joe, but it's not going to stop your fucking primal hormonal desires to
oh,
get it on, you know?
trying to stop people from having sex is how you get freaking the stupid Catholic Church and their molesters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that's not
Trying
a
to let
causal
no.
link, but I'm just saying, like, they're
Yeah,
like
you suppress
trying to
people's
suppress
fucking
people is
yeah.
not going to work out. Sex is very powerful. That's the only reason we're alive is because of
Mm-hmm.
sex. Like, we're slaves to our
Fucking
yeah, our biology. Like, we're just
you're
slaves to
slave to the fucking testicles
you're
and the
barely in
testosterone that
charge
they're
at all of your life.
yeah.
That's why people are, I mean, that's like, the idea of control and power and free will. Like, it's rare to have somebody who is in disciplined enough and in control enough and self-aware enough to uh to live like the way that they think they should,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the way that their body is propelling them, their hormones and
And that's why life
nerve
is hard.
centers.
It's harder than you think. Like,
I'm
living is easy,
I'm
but life
harder
is
I'm
hard.
harder than you think.
That muscle relaxes, not relaxing shit, is it?
It's not a muscle, man.
Oh.
It's just a bunch of flappy skin with some blood.
It's a muscle relaxant, not a cartilage relaxant.
Yeah, exactly. My cartilage.
Bam.
Look at this. My nose is great. They're stiff as fuck. I got stiff cartilage. Is that what Dix is? Dix.
Dix is?
Is that what Dix
Is
is?
my Dix is just a bunch of cartilage and blood
I feel like that's what it
vessels.
is, right? It's
Yeah,
not
I think so.
it's
Yeah,
not a
not
muscle.
actual.
It's kind of like the brain isn't a muscle. A lot of people think the brain's a muscle. It's just a metaphor. That's a metaphor for the fact that you have to work your brain like you do a muscle. But your brain is neural. It's not. It's cellular. It's not muscle cells.
Is the heart's considered a muscle,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
heart's a fucking muscle for sure. That's like all muscle tissue.
That's like the
It's
fucking
the main
OG
one.
muscle. That's the most important one. You literally cannot be alive without it. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, does every animal have a heart? Is that why hearts are such a powerful symbol? Or is it just because blood gushes out of them when you stab them?
I don't think every.
They have like there's
sure
very tiny
Google
things
it.
with like technically they have a nervous system,
Mhm.
but a nervous system is not a heart. Your heart, I mean, there are nerves that you know act on the heart, but the heart is not part of the nervous system. So
I always
I
love
think
when
you
I
have to have a
start
nervous
to
system
I
first.
start to Google a question and it autofills it in. I'm like, cool, I'm not the only person who asked Google this.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's maybe ghosts.
What animals don't have hearts?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there are also numerous animals with no hearts at all, including starfish, sea cucumbers, and coral, jellyfish. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I feel like there's probably some ocean life that doesn't have a heart.
Yeah, I was thinking insects, like smaller creatures.
So not all. They say most, and then you have a lot of animals who have multiple hearts, like 2 or 3.
That's weird.
Sometimes 4 hearts.
Yeah, let's do that. That way you can get stabbed in one.
The mammal with the highest blood pressure of all is the giraffe because it's got to get the blood all the way up that long ass fucking neck. So they have really incredibly high blood pressure. Fun little fact.
Yeah, probably needs to lose some weight, you fat bitch.
Shorten that neck, motherfucker.
Yeah, what the fuck? You don't even need to be up in the trees. Giraffes are fucking crazy. Like,
yeah, I don't.
Like, geez, why?
They're just some fucking dinosaur that did not evolve properly. They're still sort of fucked up.
I always try to. They're exactly like dinosaurs. Brontosaurus, motherfucker. Yeah. I always try to think of like when I learn something new, like what would people think before science made any sense? And like you think of the giraffe, like if let's say you're a tiny little tribe in Africa, before they're, you're I'm trying to paint this picture. Trying to paint this picture of like year one type shit. You get what I'm getting at. I do. And you come across a freaking giraffe, and what do you think? Like, I mean, do you fight it? Do you kill it? I mean, obviously you kill it and eat it.
I feel like
that's how you learn about things.
Just fucking stay away from it. You probably just like.
Well, it depends how many people you have.
Really
if
big.
you have a ton of warriors in your little tribe, maybe you got 50 people.
It's a fucking Tuesday afternoon.
Well, you just went on a little trek on some unknown area that you didn't know about, and then you found these fucking giraffes, and you're like, "This is crazy! Like, I'm in a fucking I'm in the fantasy world here, so you come up with some fucking sounds.
I was gonna say you're giving them an English language. I think their thoughts are
No,
like,
no, it would be like
that's
that's like pre-sophisticated. That's the thing about
Neanderthal.
humans, is that we've been around in this human form for 100 to 300,000 years or whatever, roughly.
Allegedly, Jesus was. It was actually
Yeah.
2021
Yeah,
years
sorry.
ago.
We've only been around for a couple thousand. But like humans in and of themselves. So our language could be just as sophisticated 100,000 years ago. There's no
Mhm.
reason why our language would be less sophisticated.
Oh, I'm sure it was. It's
Um,
just different now, obviously. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I guess your language kind of adapts to the amount of things in your environment, right?
mhm.
Like for every book you have, there's language oriented in it and on it. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
language gets real complicated the more stuff is
What's a
around.
book? Never
Oh,
seen
it's
one.
I don't have one here. It's like your phone. So like
Okay.
how you have a phone and like you flip left and right. What if there was just writing on that and somebody wrote you a story? Or they didn't write you a story, they wrote a story for somebody else and you stole it.
I write stories
Anyway,
that I didn't
what we're
steal.
talking about?
I don't know. That's
Okay,
just
spirituality.
how blown away day one caveman would be
Yeah,
at the sight
yeah.
of a giraffe.
I always think of that. Like, what would you think if you um I don't know, because I think science kind of makes things less scary or less like we
It does
can
because like
react and we can see things coming better now.
the scariest things are the unknown. Like
Yeah, of
that's
course,
the
right?
only thing that scares me. Like when any horror movie or horror story, everything is scariest until they inevitably
Yeah,
explain it. And then you're like,
yeah,
oh, now it's defined. It's
yeah.
whatever. It's some
Yeah, you know
crazy
where to
bitch who
maneuver when you
fucking
get it.
drowned her kids in a
Yeah,
bathtub and then hung herself in the
yeah.
backyard. Now
Okay,
she's a
I'll just leave.
ghost.
How's
Yeah,
about
I
I
get it.
just leave the neighborhood? This is a
So
crazy place. Why'd I move here?
like when I wrote Anathema, though, that was the biggest thing. I was like, the horror is the
Yeah, you
unknown.
have to
So
keep it going.
I have to
Yeah,
keep this going for as long as I can without really
yeah,
defining what it is. And even at the end, I intentionally made it sort of vague. I'm like, I
yeah.
want to answer some questions, but I also want to have a lot of unanswered questions
That was a fun
at the
book.
end of that story, so people can just try to figure out for themselves what they think it was.
I have a very vivid picture in my head of the island in
Mhm.
like dark, almost jungly, um, but it wouldn't be because it's in Oregon, but it'd be like wet and dirty and sandy and uh the rain coming down. I can like really picture that
Mhm.
from the
Dude,
last scenes.
when Lola did that painting for the cover,
It was
Lola
perfect.
Buckwald, she
Such a good job.
like when she showed it to me, it fucking blew my mind. I was like, that is
It's perfect
exactly like
because it
what
doesn't
you
give
would
it
just
away,
see. Uh-huh.
but it does. It
Yeah.
does give it all away, but you don't know until you've read it. And then
Mhm.
you've read it and you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
Because she just like I just picked some passages out of the book that described the island from the distance from where they could see it. And so I gave her that, and then I was like, "This is what the island is described as." And then I was like, "And these are like some key things that I feel like you should maybe try to find a way to put in there, like the people in the water, and then the like the children watching from the shore of the island, and
Yeah.
just like little things like that."
Yeah.
And so, yeah, oh
They're
man,
like
she did
little
such a great
Easter
job.
eggs that are like right in your face.
Hmm.
Hot.
But yeah, the whole time I was writing that, I was like, "What's horror? It's when you don't know what you're facing, like,
Yeah.
or and
Yeah.
like that's the
And there's
scariest
no
thing."
good explanation. So you have to come up with
Hmm.
a monster, which is what monsters are. Monsters are
Hmm.
just scary animals we haven't named properly, in the shadows. But as far as spirituality goes, I'm, I'm like a physical realist. Like I think what's real in the world is physical, and at some point, science will most likely explain it. Even consciousness and quantum theories and stuff that's very um, mysterious. I think eventually will likely be able to explain most anything. But I still think that the word spirit relating as a way to um, sum up you,
Hmm.
like my spirit, you get what I mean when I say that, even if what I'm saying is kind of abstract. It's kind of saying
Yeah, and
like
that's how
the
I view it
whole
too.
thing when you think of me, like I want, it's like my personality, but it's also my history and my experiences. And it's like if you were like if I were to die, you would be talking about the version of me that people call a spirit, that people would call his spirit.
Hmm.
And I think that's a pretty decent word to have it make sense to people who come from a religious history. And you could use the word consciousness, but it's more clinical and kind of detached, whereas
Hmm.
spirit is personal. Um, so I think it's a totally fine word to use. It's just I don't think when I think of it, I think of the very tangible version of myself that also includes the thoughts of me and other people. But that's a tangible thing in their brain, you know.
Yeah.
So you only really exist as long as other entities know of you, including yourself. So like after I
Kind of true in a
die,
way. I mean, like the moment that anybody who knows you is gone and nobody remembers who
yeah.
you
And
were,
you know you,
you
so then
are
you
gone.
count.
So yeah.
So
But
it's
once you're
like
dead,
once you're
you're
dead,
not.
then you
Yeah.
can only rely on the impression that you've made on the world. And that can be one person, or it could be everybody, or it could be, you could be Gandhi. And then you're still alive in a very um detached way
Yeah.
that you don't get to experience. And so
Well,
it's
and
really
that's what
not that
I.
valuable to you.
Well, and that's why part of the reason why I enjoy writing books, because it's like, well, after
Yeah.
I'm dead, if
Yeah.
people want to remember me or want like a glimpse into some part of me, there you go. Fucking books out
Yeah.
the ass over there
Sure.
you can read that,
Yeah.
sort
And,
of give
and
you some insight.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that we have this
But at the same time, like
need
what
for continuation
yeah,
to
but and I was about
justify
to say,
our
but then that's
actions.
our own kind of selfishness and that we feel like we're worthy of continuing on for forever or for,
I don't.
it's like
Yeah, it
there's
might not
so
be
many of us.
worthy.
Why
It's
yeah.
just a compulsion. Like it's like I don't. You don't have to be super narcissistic to want the world to see you. It's like the same thing as a child. A child wants to be seen. It wants to be real. It wants to know that things interact with it and that there's stuff that matters about
Nothing
them.
matters.
Yeah,
You're
and
just
then
gonna blink out one day.
technically, yeah, it's so interesting. Like eventually you're just going to be dead, and I don't believe in any after
I don't
life.
either.
My
What do you think happens when you
consciousness,
die? I don't know. What was it like before you were born? Fucking nothing. You're
yeah, it's what
you're not
happens
even
to
gonna know
me
you're
is
dead. It's gonna
is
be totally
different. Yeah,
painless process. You're gonna just blink out
eventually,
and it's
yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah, the actual dying might be
Yeah,
painful
it could
depending
take
on
a
what's
minute.
going on,
Could
but
Well, I mean, it's taken a while so far. Um, and I've got a bad back to prove it. Ugh, it's so cliche to be getting older and have a bad back.
it
Like
is
it's
very typical.
like fucking falling apart. Like literally, it sucks.
Well, your body, dude, you're headed to that age. It's like around 40 when like things just start wearing
This is
out.
40. They made a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
movie. I didn't
There's
watch that movie though.
I
I
don't think
assume
they
it's
talk about
about
that
getting
much.
older and trying to
I
be
think it's more
funny.
about being complacent in your marriage with your
Yeah,
kids
it
and
probably
shit.
is.
So
Yeah, because most people by my age are bitterly stuck in a marriage
mhm.
with kids. It's something that like if you do right, I think is really really awesome, and it's just so hard and it's so difficult. Being a parent just really is wears you down.
I didn't want to deal with it, so I took care of it.
Yeah, snip
Like I
snip.
didn't I didn't have a kid and killed a kid. I just, I took
Oh,
care
you
of
didn't kill all the kids.
my ability to create children.
Yeah, I think that's more moral than abortion, but we don't have to get into that. That could be
Oh yeah,
a future. You know what I
abortion.
want to talk about next? Not next time, but sometime is charity. The concept of charity, about giving away your money, which we kind of talked about a little bit here, where we are talking about religion and people
Hmm.
not giving away their stuff, even though that's kind of part of
The
the
whole
whole
doctrine. Yeah.
Jesus mystique. Yeah, Christianity's real.
You'll
Christianity,
get there.
Christian
Christian and
sanity,
Anity.
Christian insanity. Um, it's an interesting thing because it's like super prevalent.
Hmm.
Um, that I don't know. It's just interesting to think
There's
that
so many sects
yeah.
of it
So
too.
yeah, and it's so diverse.
Christian Baptists and
It's
fucking
it's like the
Lutherans, and you're
people
like,
just
what?
grasping onto it like community. They need it so much.
Hmm.
And it's true. I mean, you get so much out of like a good church experience that why would you want to leave those people and those friends and have to But then why you don't want to
You
censor
need a
yourself? That's
place
why
to go.
I can't be those. I can't talk to people who are insistent on religious
Yeah,
beliefs
it's
because
tough.
I'm not I can't I don't want to talk about it. It's not interesting.
Well,
It's
it's
not
just
true.
it's I like have had conversations with people who are like manic and delusional, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot like talking to my stepmom about God
A
or
little
something. You know what I
one-sided.
mean? You're just like
Yeah, it's like
the things you're
one-sided
talking about are
conversations.
so
Yeah,
like outlandish that
yeah,
it sounds like you're just reading a fucking alternate Harry
yeah.
Potter book to me. I don't
They're
know what's going
yeah,
on.
with really bad writing.
It's dry as fuck. It's so boring.
Oh, the Bible sucks.
Half the
I
moral lessons are so
Yeah,
outdated.
it has to be. What are you talking about? Like
Can
it's just
we get
it's
an
just getting
updated
your
one? It's like more hip.
yeah, like I don't know, like yeah. I think well, you could make your own Bible just by like getting all the people you think are intellectuals and good storytellers and just create a compilation of their
Well, I
books.
mean, there's people who like
Steal them.
follow the Jedi religion from fucking Star Wars, you know, that like
So,
have
do you
their
know how fun of a religion that is for
yeah.
them? Those people figured it out. Just
Yeah,
make
they
a
get out in
religion
front of
around
semis and
the
they try to
thing
stop
you're
it with the
already a fan of.
force. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of them around anymore, but you know, they tried.
They don't believe it. In
You're
maybe
right.
150 years, they will. 150 years, they'll be like, no, there really was like
They were
Jedi's back in the
fucking
day.
Jedi,
No,
yeah.
like 150
They wore
years,
their mom's
you
bathrobes
know.
and they fucking
Yeah,
did battle
they'd
in
have
the
pictures of them,
street.
and it'd be super weird because, like, in 150 years, a bathrobe doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah,
It's
right.
totally, it's like an artifact
These
of
are
like a
the ancient
bygone era.
Jedi robes. They
Yeah, but it's
were
actually
very
like he's
soft and
wearing a
cushy.
fucking cape, which is a towel, because he's a fucking loser. I'm super curious. I want to see the future because I think it's going to be really interesting, and I
It
want to
would
see the
be cool.
past.
It
I
would
want to
be
see the
cool
past too.
to like have a just a glimpse, right? Or maybe you could just spend like a couple of hours like in 200 years from the future or whatever. Like you could open a little window, kind of peek in and be like, yeah, I'll hang out for a couple of hours. Because if you opened like
That's the
if you just
ultimate
got dropped
tourism.
off in like 200 years and it's just a fucking cesspool of erupting volcanoes and nuclear war, you're like, ooh, I don't want to be here for
Yeah.
fucking
Well,
two
I'm going
hours. This
back.
is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, can I just take a peek first and then decide?
Yeah. In my short story, The Time Hero,
Mm-hmm.
it's about a world, a future where um they've got quantum computers, because if you put quantum in front of it, it means magic.
Mm-hmm. Of
Um,
course, yeah.
and so they have quantum
Science magic
computers
specifically.
the size of like skyscrapers, and it's a
Oh,
quantum
Jesus.
computer, so it can do almost infinite amount of computations. It's probably overkill. You probably wouldn't even need it that big, but um, and
Sounds cool though.
what they've figured out is how to create a simulation of every version of the universe starting at like point A, right? So it just starts to branch off, kind of like the multi-universe theory,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just creating simulations, and it creates them super accurately. Like it knows almost everything that ever, how every molecule moves and everything, right? So it can just simulate the world as it is essentially, the universe. And so it can do all these simulations, and so every time something in the main world happens, it can create an offshoot, but every time something happens in any of the baby worlds, it can create offshoots. And it's just this, like simulation of how um, the multi universe theory would work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point, um, it became so entangled with the home world that it actually creates a wormhole or portal that allows you to travel to any point in time in any of the simulations. Because it's just a simulation on a computer, you can just be a virtual avatar in those simulations. And so you can go back and forward through time, because it can simulate the past because it knows how everything works. And so tourism in the future is just you like spending time in alternate universes in any time period that would be connected to uh, the earth and humanity and all that.
You should like if you ever do some
So
editing
there.
on it, will instead of wormhole, will you change it to quantum hole?
Of
I think it would
course.
just
Oh my God.
work better.
Oh, I
It
fucked it up.
created a quantum
Duh. Yeah.
hole.
How many? You can only use quantum so many times. I'm sure I used it tons of times. I think I did call it like the quantum super universe simulation
Oh,
something.
nice.
Like it was like,
Did it have a cool acronym or is like,
yeah, I think it did.
it
Because you
just
have to
spelled
use the
out like
acronym
some person's name?
afterward. It
Yeah.
takes too long to write it all out.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I listened to a podcast from Sean Carroll, and it was like 3 hours of him going over time travel and how time travel actually would work from a scientific perspective, or how it could work if like certain scientific things that aren't known are known, and it changes the way we think of things. And he's a theoretical physicist, and he's
Mhm.
fucking genius, essentially.
Yeah, I've listened to some of
And
the episodes. Some of them are interesting, and then other ones I'm
yeah,
like, I have no fucking idea what
yeah.
you guys are talking about right
Well, you talk
now. You
about
lost me
yeah,
completely.
has tons of different people on there. Um, to me, it's like the intellectual Joe Rogan. Like
Mhm.
it's very interesting, but it gets very technical, and it's much more scientific. Um, but I listened to that, and then I had to make all these changes, and because I was hoping it'd fit in,
Did some research,
like
yeah.
it's totally inconceivable to be real, but that's
You don't
how
know, man. You don't know what
there's
it's gonna be like.
yeah, that's how time travel works in that world. Is that you're not traveling through your own universe's time, but you can travel through all these simulated times, but it's essentially real because of the technology.
Kind of reminds me, there's an episode of Rick and Morty that we just watched where it's from the last season where he gives, I don't, do you watch the last season of Rick and Morty? When he gives Morty that little do-over
Yep.
button where he's
Yep.
like,
Yep.
oh, can
Yeah,
you create
totally.
like a save game thing like in a video game?
Yeah.
And he does, but then later on he finds out that basically every time he hit the button, it annihilated that Morty and then put him in that Morty's place.
Hmm.
So it was just him constantly murdering himself and all these other timelines to simulate
Yeah.
getting a redo, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting that he reacts in such a harsh way when if that was possible and you just didn't feel any effects of it, you wouldn't why would you care?
Yeah.
That person was literally just obliterated. They probably didn't feel any pain, and who's to say that they're real or less real or
Yeah.
more real? Like what does that even change
That's
the term real? Like you still give a fuck about yourself. Like
Mhm.
if there's a million of me, why do I need to preferentially enjoy like keep them alive or enjoy their company or like
Maybe
you
saying
know what I
that
mean?
you're sort of murdering people accidentally at first, and then later
So it
on
wouldn't
when you know
matter.
about it.
It wouldn't matter who that he was murdering if he like took the place of someone else.
Mhm.
Wouldn't
Maybe it's just
matter.
still the
Wouldn't
idea
change it.
that you know every time you press that button, you're annihilating a life in another place that you're then gonna
Yeah.
fill in for.
It'd be much more plausible than just him going back in time.
Yeah, no, that's great. That show's fucking great.
Yeah.
That acid episode is like probably the best
Is it?
episode of that whole season.
I
It's
didn't like
fucking.
it. I didn't think it was that good, but it was also because I had heard about it beforehand, and then when I
Oh,
watched
really?
it, I was like, it's hyped
Well,
up.
because like what's funny is they call it vat of acid, but there's the vat of acid in the beginning of the episode, and then it doesn't show up again until the very end after his
Hmm.
whole excursion with the fucking remote, basically.
Yeah, it's a great episode though. I the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, I get it. It's a time thing. Ha ha
Mhm.
ha. Morty's a fucking idiot, and the doctor's Doc Brown or Rick is an asshole, and that's
Mhm.
all he is.
Yeah.
He just capitulates to Morty, and everything goes horribly wrong all the time. Like when they create the um, Ryan Stoltz, or no, there was like it's one of the first episodes where he turns everybody into like praying mantis monsters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm
The
talking about?
Cronenberg monsters,
Yeah,
where
Cronenberg.
he just
Oh,
keeps
it's Cronenberg
thinking he
world.
fucking figured it out and he just keeps making it worse and worse and
Yeah,
worse, and then they
yeah,
just have to leave the fucking
yep.
universe
That's when they leave the
entirely.
universe and kill themselves in the other universe. Um, yeah, that was Morty's idea was just
The
to
fucking
create
dogs
a.
take over
Oh yeah,
in
was that
that
the
one
same?
episode. Oh
Yeah,
no,
no,
that's a
that
different
was
episode.
that was a different episode, I think.
Yeah.
But and then everybody likes Pickle Rick. I think I get why people like it, but out of all the episodes, it was kind of
It was
it was
funny, but it
it was
wasn't.
more like
Yeah.
heady because of all the stuff going on in the psychology office,
Mhm.
and then you have the rats, killing, and he's such a badass. But
Him
it,
compiling like
yeah,
a fucking basically like a cyborg robot rat suit from their corpse
yeah,
pieces was
it was
pretty good.
badass. But he's a badass.
Yeah.
He's such a superhero that it gets a little bit like kind of old. Like he can kind of just do anything. He's
Well,
essentially a
because
god.
even when it seems like he's losing or somebody got the upper hand on him, you find out that it's like some long play that he had
Yeah.
to, like when he gets imprisoned at the end of that one season and the season ends. Well, I think it was like the second season
Yeah.
ended with him being imprisoned, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is kind of a downer note.
Yeah.
And then the very first episode of the next season, you find out it's just a ploy for him to get into the fucking galactic universe police
and kill
fucking
everybody.
building and just take
Yeah.
over. So
Yeah, the Citadel of Ricks.
I like when
Yeah,
I like when he implodes the whole economy by just changing the value of their
yeah,
dollar to zero
that's pretty
and
funny.
then just fucking
Like
destroys
that's how
everything.
easy their money
Yeah.
is controlled. They just manually
Y'all answer
change it.
that for money.
Yeah, yeah. That's so good.
Stamps
So who's
becomes the
paying
new
me?
currency.
I have a solution you haven't thought of yet. Himself in the face. Yeah, I
Great
love
show.
that show.
I need to
I've
sit down
watched
and
through
like
it at least 3 times. At least 3 times I've watched all the way through. I can't do it again. I can't. I know everything that's going to happen. And
No,
it's a
really.
lot of
I haven't
fun.
watched it in a
I
while, so
played
I'll
it so
probably run through
much.
the whole thing because the new season starts at I think the 20th or something is
Yeah, I'm
the
excited
next
about that.
season premiere. So I'm
Yeah,
sure I'll
yeah. Rick
hop
and
back in.
Morty. Yeah,
Do you have any recommendations
yeah. It's going to
this
be
week?
a repeat. I recommend
Oh,
News of the World.
oh, nice.
You
That
recommended it
great.
last time.
Yeah.
I'm recommending it. It's a double recommendation.
I
I think
got two
people should
thumbs
read
up,
it.
four thumbs up, I guess, at
Yeah,
this point.
4 thumbs in your butt.
Four them.
You put them close together so they can go in the butt. Put them close together so they can go in
What
the
is
butt.
happening right now? What is going on?
So anyway, that's my recommendation.
Shit, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I have one. I
Oh,
haven't.
you didn't think of one?
I just like as I asked you, I was
What
like,
about
oh shit, I didn't really think about it.
I'm thinking of the things you mentioned today that you were into. You had something at the beginning that you were saying. Maybe a book.
Well, I haven't finished like the last week I did the Ring Show, and I haven't finished another book in the last week. So I don't have a new
not reading
book
a
to
fucking
recommend.
book a week. You could read a book
There
a
were
week.
some movies
I
that
like
we watched
TV.
recently. I try to find things to recommend that are a little bit more like low key that
Obscure.
maybe people wouldn't they like people might miss if I didn't tell them. But I guess just for the sake of moving this along without a bunch of fucking dead air, I would recommend
Move
the
it along.
new right, move it along, bitch. The new we actually just watched the new Spiral from the Book of Saw. I don't know if you're a fan of the Saw movie franchise. It's like the newest entry that Chris Rock actually did. And it's pretty good. It's kind of like a
Saw
reboot,
is
sort
it?
of what?
Well, it's Saw like I've watched the original like 2 or 3 Saw movies.
Yeah,
But
so it's a
is this
follow-up
another
to like
one?
that series. Yeah, it's called Spiral
Hmm.
from the Book of Saw is like the subtitle.
Oh wow.
And it basically follows this one's a little different because it plays out more like a kind of a police procedural movie where Chris Rock is this detective that keeps getting these like boxes of clues sent to him by essentially like a copycat Saw killer who's putting these like various cops into traps. And so the whole movie is him trying to figure out who it is, why they're, basically putting cops into traps. You find, you kind of find out that there's some dirty cops and some other things going on. And but it's pretty good. It was it's like the second time they've sort of tried to reboot the Saw movies because they had the initial run of 7 movies, which wrapped up the whole story. And then a few years ago, they did a movie called Jigsaw, which was kind of like a sequel reboot thing. And I just don't think, and that one was okay. It wasn't that great. And I just don't think it took off. So then they kind of rebooted it a second time with this new one. But it's good. It's like the best Saw movie probably since like the original like first 3. To me, like the first 3 Saw movies are all pretty good, and then they just get weaker and weaker and more ridiculous after that. But it was surprisingly good. It was interesting to see Chris Rock kind of in a dramatic role, but he also was still kind of funny. Like he has some pretty funny lines throughout the movie as well. Like you can tell he's kind of a comedian trying to fit into a dramatic role without shedding all the comedian layers, you could say. But it's really good if people are hesitant to watch it or didn't even know that it was coming out. Yeah. Are you looking it up right now? You're looking up something on your computer.
I am sorry. I'm looking up Saw, trying to remember those freaking movies. But I really enjoyed the first one, and I was like, when did that come out? Like 15 years ago?
2002, 2003.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it's been around for a while.
Almost.
Yeah.
God damn. That's awesome. That's freaking. They just can't get rid of this morbid violence. Just what kind of situation? It's kind of like
2004. 2004.
okay, so almost like
close.
17 years. 16 years. Um, it's like Final Destination just like kept going. It's like how many different ways can people just be murdered?
Because we're so fascinated with watching
Oh
people
yeah.
just be murdered in the most gruesome fashions.
Nah,
I'm
nah.
guilty of it. I love horror movies and shit like that.
You're fucking guilty.
I'm guilty as
You're
fuck.
going to hell.
Also, have you read any of
You're
my
going to
books?
hell.
Like, inevitably, my stories devolve into some sort of just over the top violent encounter of some kind.
Yeah, I've seen it. But
Even in like as I'm finishing up the last Western Sense trilogy book, that book is dialogue heavy as fuck. Like,
mhm.
it's mostly just characters talking through,
That's
and then
cool.
it's really weird. Like, I didn't expect that to happen, but like as I've been writing it, I'm like, this was just like a 15-page chapter of just people talking in a room. It's really weird. Um, but then like, now I'm at the end game where like all the shit's really happening, and now it's just like chapters full of just fucking gruesome,
Just
just
heads exploding.
bloody ass gunfights and shit. And it's actually probably pretty tame in comparison to like Hell Came With Her. Hell Came With Her is pretty out there
Yeah,
with some of the scenes.
yeah, for sure. But you gotta have it in there. You gotta let those demons out.
Yeah, right. Well, Hell Came With Her was designed to be like a super bloody, hyper violent, like pulpy sort of Western
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Clint
So,
Eastwood esque, but with
mhm.
the modern.
With some rifle rape and
Yeah, yeah, with like the like modern grotesqueness that we
yeah.
can get away with. Because we can, I mean, we're all so desensitized. It doesn't
Oh
matter.
yeah.
I mean, you're like, oh, fucking gun rape. Yeah, no, I get it. I've seen it. I've seen it before.
Yeah, it's happened
No,
before.
I think they first did that in like 1998 with the fucking whatever movie.
The only movie I've actually seen that in, which I actually watched it after I did Hell Came With Her, was a movie called I Spit on Your Grave, where it's like a rape
Oh,
revenge movie where this female writer goes out to this cabin in the woods to work on her book, and then inevitably some good old hillbilly boys show up and assault her, and then the second half of the movie is her getting her revenge because they leave her for dead after they rape her out in the woods. And they think that they
yeah.
killed her because I think they shoot her or they shoot at her and they think that they hit her or something. And then she comes back for revenge and she ends up raping one of the guys with like a shotgun, I think.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah, like I
as I watched
said,
that scene, I was like,
like I
oh
said,
fuck, that's just like my scene in the book.
yeah, yeah. God damn. Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be you got to put some new spice on the violence in stuff. It's hard to, not just repeat all the other
Mhm.
gruesome shit you've seen. Like shooting somebody's head off is no big deal.
Yeah,
Decapitation with a sword,
a few
no big
times.
deal. It's
Yeah, it's
boring.
been done there, but I mean, yeah. How many times can you
Fucking
describe
boring.
blood jetting from a fucking
Yeah,
stump of a
I
neck?
get it.
And
Yeah.
I tried to come up like with more creative. It's weird trying to come up with more creative ways to explain somebody being destroyed by a gun, basically,
Yeah.
because you're like, you don't
Yeah.
want to just say he got shot in the chest and bled to death. It's like
Yeah.
the there's a
There's an
scene
earthquake in
where
his
a
chest.
character gets shot through the stomach, and I describe how the bullet severed his spinal cord, and then he staggers around for a second as his legs slowly stop working, as his like spine's
Mhm.
disconnecting,
He's
and
just
then
the
he
upper
falls.
half.
And it's just like, I'm like, why did I just spend a paragraph describing that? Oh, because I gotta come up with something fucked up and creative other than he got
Yeah.
shot in the stomach.
It's like
It's like, no,
a
the bullet fucking went through,
Yeah, like that
blasted
sniper
through his
game,
spinal cord.
Sniper
Oh,
Elite,
Sniper
where
Elite,
you would
yeah.
have the bullet
The
time,
X-ray,
and it was
yep.
all just and
Well, there's
the
something in like
X-ray. Yeah,
describing that. Like, I feel like if you just write out he was shot in the stomach and he grabbed it and fell over. Like, there's not as much impact as like describing like the
he got
damage
shot
that
in the
the bullet
stomach.
does.
He got that's like the least literary way to write something. He got shot in the stomach. He bent over and he fucking fell over. I guess
He
he's
fell
fucking
over.
dead
He
right now.
was fucking
It's like
laying around writhing.
it's like when your grandma explains a story. And then I drove to the supermarket, and then I got out of the car, and then I walked into the supermarket, and then I
Mhm.
remembered I forgot to get the bag. So I had to go back outside and get the bag. And then I went back in the supermarket, and then I grabbed a car. Like, bitch, that's not a story.
Yeah, it's just
What are
stop
you
giving me the
doing?
blow
Can you
by
give
blow.
me any details that
Yeah.
matter? Give me like
What the
pertinence.
concrete look like? Was it hot? Was it hot outside? Did you
It
feel
was
the heat
so
emanating
hot.
up off the
And then
concrete,
I was thinking,
making
and
your
then I
feet
said
hot
to
in your
Terry
sandals?
before I left, I said, hey, I don't know, it's so hot out there.
It was a bad idea coming to the store on such a hot day. I should have waited
I
till the evening.
know.
You know what I should have done, Carol, is I should have
Yeah.
got up early in the morning, right when the store was first opening. First off, you got less people in the store. It's cooler outside, so you don't have to worry about your groceries getting all rotten in the back of the car,
Mhm.
and you drive home.
But I waited until 2 and there was
I
so
waited
many
till 2.
people there.
And God,
I don't
I'm
know.
such a dunce, Carol. I don't know why I was
Hmm.
thinking that I would go
And
at
then
2.
you know what? I got watermelons.
You got
No,
watermelons?
that's the whole
That's all.
story. That's the end of the fucking story. The whole fucking punchline is just, you know what? And then I went home. How was your day? And you're like,
What a
what is
riot,
happening here?
huh?
Your day
All,
to day is not interesting.
all that effort for the
Yeah.
watermelon.
Oh yeah, grandma. Okay, that's nice. I'm gonna go over here and steal money out of your wallet.
And then I'm gonna go to the strip club and I'm
Okay, but
gonna
then maybe we'll have some macaroni and cheese or something for dinner.
and we can have some watermelon for dessert. The
Oh,
watermelon
did
that
I
I bought
mention? Yeah.
earlier.
So I thought I got watermelon, but then I ended up getting one of those
Cantaloupe. It was
baby
a
water.
fucking cantaloupe.
Yeah, no,
What was
she's.
I thinking?
Hey, what are you fucking doing, Ma? You buying fucking cantaloupes and you think you're buying watermelons? What are you doing?
You stupid bitch. They're not
You
even the
stupid,
same
you stupid
color.
bitch. One's like all fucking divity and one's all smooth.
Are you
One's
fucking
fucking.
colorblind? Can you not see the
I
green of the
didn't bring my
watermelon?
glasses. I didn't bring my glasses. So anyway, Cheryl,
Every,
Terry.
everything feels the same with these wrinkly ass fingers I've got. I've got no sensation left from all
It's
those
like
years of
I've been
giving
in
your
a bath
grandpa
for
hand
47
jobs.
years.
That's great. That's a great sort of like climactic conclusion to this. This
Climactic
episode is
conclusion.
5 minutes of old lady voice.
Old lady. Hey there, old lady. You want to come over here? That's an old lady who's been smoking all her life. Come over here. Come on. You know you want it. Come over here. Get over here. Give your fucking
It's
Aunt Terry.
rumpus time.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, you fucking. Yeah, you're doing such a good job right there. That's oh, you know Venture Brothers.
Oh
You
yeah,
ever
yeah,
watch
yeah.
that?
Oh
The
yeah, with
woman,
the tall, attractive woman who
Mrs.
has that
What's
voice.
her name? Her name's like she's like super hot, and she's like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? I don't know. That's fucking great. Whatever."
Yeah, I know who you're
Kind
talking
of
about. I
talks
can't
like
think of
that.
her
She's
name
not
though.
as like manly, I guess, like dark.
But she's got that gravelly smoker's voice.
Oh yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right.
I haven't watched that show in a long time. I should check that out again.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched that a ton of times, and I have no idea what's going on in it. Like no
Yeah, it's a
episodes
weird
make any
show.
sense. I don't.
It's one of those
I
shows
don't
too
know
that
the timeline at all.
I don't really laugh at that much. It's more like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like the whole time I'm watching
Yeah,
it, but it's still sort of
it's
engrossing in a
very
weird way.
dry. It's
Yeah.
very dry, and I like the Brock character where that guy does a great
Mhm.
job. He's in a lot of stuff. He played the Tick in the live action version.
Yeah, it's
of
like
the
if you
Tick
need a
show.
guy who's got like a really deep manly voice, you just hire that dude.
I can't do very that
No,
low.
you can't.
No, that was
that
more
was-
like a impression of a monkey of some sort. Ooh.
I think this is back to the day one Neanderthals looking at the giraffes again.
You had me at Neanderthals.
Didn't I?
Is that what we're talking about? Giraffes?
When we were talking about Neanderthals, yeah, we were like,
I
what were
remember
they
that.
thinking? Anyway, all right, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we're done. All right. Go to joesnotesblog.com, go to Amazon and check out Channing's books. Instagram, what's your Instagram?
No, no, at Novel Scheme, just like my Twitter handle.
At Novel Scheme, because you're coming up with novel schemes constantly.
Mhm.
And
All the
I'm
time.
at G_grins and also at fractalfocus.nature on Instagram. What else do we got? Twitters? Nah, fuck it. That's boring.
That's
Just
it.
go to joesnotesblog.com. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.